Hi, your favourite Atomic Blonde here with my Picard Season 3 Episode 2 review or initial thoughts. To be honest, I've literally just finished watching the episode and I'm still buzzing. Oh my gosh. Yeah, Episode 2. I mean, I think I can see there being some complaints because there's a lot of not member berries, but there's sort of things that make you go, oh, this feels like Star Trek. It's we'll get into those. So really, as you can tell, I enjoyed this episode. It actually, stories moving forward, introduced another legacy character, which is great and kicked ass. I loved it. I mean, I was looking forward to episode 2, which I wasn't sure I would be, going into this journey. We've all been burnt a gazillion times by Kurtzman Trek, and obviously we've seen it with Marvel, we've seen it with Lucasfilm, but episode 2 holds up, and like I said, pushes the story forward, more character development, more information coming out. We sort of see who is in the alien ship. So we ended last week's episode with Picard, Riker, and Jack Crusher, who he's introduced himself as Beverly's son. Stuck on the Helios with this alien spacecraft just hovering over them. The ship's failing. Obviously we don't know who they are or what they want. This unravels and Picard and Riker kind of try to work out what they can do. Their initial plan is to get Beverly onto the shuttle, fly out, try and get a message to Titan or get back to the Titan. The alien spacecraft basically opens fire, destroys the shuttle, so that's plan A out the window. Picard very quickly goes round, puts these transporter inhibitors up, and Jack's like, what are you doing? Why, what's that? And they try and beam Jack off the ship. So Picard's like, well, now we know what they want. They're after you. Why are they after you? And he's like, well, I don't know. Being very, very cagey. So then a tractor beam's put on the ship. So basically, they beam down 2 people to obviously try and get Jack. Riker gets the hand grenade bomb thing, goes running off and takes care of them. And then they get caught in a tractor beam because basically if they can't get on the ship, they'll bring the ship to their ship. But obviously this old Helios ship is battered, the power's virtually down to nothing, and it can't, the structural integrity of the ship starts to fail because it's tractor beam, and it's a ship is just so much damage, not enough power. The life support is failing on Beverly's stasis chamber because obviously she's injured from episode 1. And there was some proper tension. I was actually feeling tension watching this, like how are they going to get out of this? The ship's failing, Beverly's dying. And back on the Titan, you've basically got the Captain Shaw saying, they made their bed, lie in it. I ain't going to go save them. And Seven's just like, she basically just says, like, do you want to be known for the guy that let 2 legends die? Or do you want to be the hero that saves 2 legends? I was like, I don't really give a crap what you do actually do or don't think about Riker and Picard. But other people think an awful lot of these 2, So she basically sort of gives him an ultimatum. He's basically like, it sort of had enough of her really, and he's sort of said, you're excused. But then when it comes to the crunch, obviously he thinks about what she said, and next thing you see is the Titan just warping in, coming between the Helios and this alien ship, breaking the tractor beam. Really cool. They then tried to beam Picard and the others on board, which they can't because they've got these inhibitors up. It's like, It's the first thing I thought. It's like, don't you want to switch those inhibitors off? you might want you don't want them to beam you up. I'm pretty sure, So anyway, Picard they all go, oh, inhibitors, and Picard shoots them, and in the nick of time, they were beamed aboard the Titan. But I was like, proper, actual tension here, because it's the last season of Picard. It's the farewell to TNG crew. We always know the rules in a trilogy. Anyone could die at any moment, right? So there is some proper tension. We could lose characters in this season. So anyway, they get back on board the Titan. Obviously, the captain's pissed. He pretty much sort of says to Seven, you're what's that? You're no longer like, what's the word? Relieved of duty. That's it. It come to me. Sorry, still suffering with the cold. Relieved of duty, and her command coming, and she's trying to give him advice on this alien ship and what it could be, and he's just not having a bar of it. Riker and Picard end up on the bridge, and obviously arguing, and then they get hailed. And this is when we get introduced to Amanda Plummer's character, who just looks as she always does. She always plays quirky characters and mad as box of frogs, and she absolutely comes across as mad as a box of frogs in a great way. Basically says she wants Jack. There's a bounty on his head. They've got an hour to hand him over, and if they don't, obviously she's going to if you try and run, I'll blow you up. If you try and do this, I'll blow you up. And they drop their shields so the Titan can scan their ship, and this thing is just armored to the nines, right? They're just listing off all these types of weapons, and it's far superior to anything on the Titan. Shaw says to Seven earlier, where they're having this debate about whether to go rescue Picard or not. We're an exploration vessel. Our weapons don't match theirs. I've got to protect 500 crew. Rather than running around trying to protect these two, which is a really valid point, and something, needs of the many and all of that. He's absolutely right, so so they get the scale of the issue. They then, so Shaw then looks into who this Jack Crusher is. He's in the brig. Well, they take him to the brig. It's all that he's got all these pseudonyms. He's basically a con man. He's wanted for up-team different charges, different systems. And there's a really good scene between Picard and Riker. They're in the turbo lift, and Riker's kind of are we going to talk about this kind of thing? And Picard's like, what? And he goes, basically, you're not facing up to this. And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And Riker's like, look, I've done the maths, and you can see it. You can just see it. And Picard's just sort of being like, oh. So obviously Riker's implying that Jack is Picard's son. And Picard's kind of like, And Riker's just like, look, you need to freaking, get your head in the game. And we need to sort this out because, sure, he's going to hand him over. So Riker goes off to sick bay to go see Beverly. And Picard goes to see Jack and tries to find out more about Jack. And I sort of ask him directly, who is his father? And are these charges against you true? I need to know. I need to understand what the hell's going on and who are you in the next, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, or you're going to be handed over. And Jack's just like, I don't know who my father is, and it's true, whatever. So then there's another sort of set to, obviously, between Picard and Shaw, because Shaw's just like, I'm handing him over. He needs, he's a criminal. And both Riker and Picard, much more principled, going, yeah, but he's still a human being. You hand him over. You're handing him over to the mob. He's not going to get a fair trial. That's not how Starfleet works. And Shaw's, but again, he's like, I've got this crew to protect. And that's stuff, we're outside of Starfleet space. And that's actually, the rules. That's the protocol that I need to put the safety of my crew and my ship ahead of anything else. So it kind of, it's that rules versus morality, and ethics and all that kind of thing. Meanwhile, they're debating this. They get held again, and she comes back on screen, just basically just saying like, if I don't get him now, I'm just going to destroy planet after planet, or ship after ship until you hand him over. So you carry on debating, you take your time, but we all know what the outcome's going to be. Meanwhile, you've got so Jack manages to break out of his cell. He's got his device and lowers the force field and runs. And he goes to the transporter room. He's basically planning on handing himself over to save his mum and the crew members. So meanwhile, all this is happening on the Titan. We've then got Raffi's storyline continuing with obviously the destruction of the it was academy or outpost in episode 1. And she's obviously speaking to her handler, who she's basically a statement's been put out that it's like the Romulans had stolen the weapon, and this is potentially fake news, but like this terrorist, it's blah blah blah. Raffi knows from her intel that it's not, and she's asking permission to carry on investigating. She thinks that it's a Ferengi gangster arms dealer involved, and he moved the weapon. She wants to go see them, and she basically gets told to stand down by her handler, like stop investigating, let it go, and move on. And Raffi's like, absolutely not. She feels like there's a cover up, or she's being fobbed off. So she decides to go see this Ferengi dealer off her own back. Obviously this does not go well. This guy's not daft. He's not got this position, without, having his intel. He knows that she worked for Starfleet. She's sort of giving it the whole, that was a long time ago, and I'm not part of that anymore, and I'm working for such and such. And he's like, oh, really? Okay. And he's like, well, prove it then. And she's like, and he basically rigs her up with a drug, and obviously she's a recovering addict, and she basically gets forced into having to take this drug, which does happen to undercover officers and things like that. And he's like, well, who do you work for? And she's like, well, like such and such. And he just basically says, oh, you must have been hardcore addict that you can basically fight off this drug. And he goes, I know you didn't work for such and such. And he just basically picks up this dude's head, and it's a guy she was talking to in episode 1 at the bar. And he's just like, I know you're lying, and I had to cover my tracks basically, and here's your boss, so-called boss. At which point she can barely see, she's all over the place with this drug. The guy describes it as like he's sort of torn apart and pulled back together, and torn apart and pulled back together. So she's like, tripping balls. Then you see this character come in, starts fighting off the Ferengi's guys, and the like axe comes out, and the slicing and dicing and heads lobbing, and finally gets the Ferengi, lobs his head off. Cool as, just boom, boom, body parts. It's brilliant. And of course, it's Worf. Cool AF. So Worf's her handler. He makes a comment that says, I told you to leave it alone. So he's her handler. And he basically obviously gets her up and gets her out. Then we go back to the Titan. Jack was basically gets to the transporter room, prepared to hand himself over. Shaw's like, well, let him, clear conscience, just let him go, not our problem. Ethics problem, dilemma sorted. And Picard's like sort of mulling this over. Riker appears on the bridge with Beverly. She was sedated, and he's like just woken her up and dragged her out of sick bay. Gets her on the bridge, and they're just looking at each other, like Beverly and Picard, and Picard's just like, you can just see it's like this moment, that affection's still there between them, because obviously we don't know what's going on, or other than they tried to date and it didn't work out. there's this moment of connection, and she's just looking at him. This is her son, and he's got an inkling that Jack's his son, and just a look on her face. And then for the first time since God knows when, Picard is Picard. Some switch goes, he overrules Shaw. He's like, right, I'm the Admiral. And he's sort of like, we're doing this, doing that, raise shields, blah, 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 blah. Boom. No nonsense, no messing. Because a bit earlier when he was talking to Jack, and he was sort of trying to shout at Jack, and Patrick Stewart's voice is gone. He was all like, and it just cracked when he was like trying to raise his voice. But in this scene, he's actually able to have a bit of power in his voice and actually talks with authority. This spineless, I'm sorry for everything. Picard was killed in that moment. This guy grew a bloody backbone, acted like a member of Starfleet, like a freaking admiral, and just like, boom, this is what we're doing. And orders, engage, and they start firing at the ship. And then as per, because there's a lot of callbacks to the original series, but the films. So a la Wrath of Khan. So we kind of had, where Kirk, had an hour to think about surrendering and they figure out the codes. So Picard and Shaw have had an hour. Are they going to hand over Jack? Then it's the whole, no, we're not. And then they shoot the ship and fly into the nebula. Because as we know, as per Star Trek rules, you can't see anything in the nebula. Scanners don't work. Everybody's as blind as everybody else, and it's an equal playing field. Well, that's the rules that we know. This ship is something we've never seen before. So does that still work? We don't know. But basically ended with the cards starting a fight with this ship, but they're massively outgunned to save his son. And he basically, like, Shaw says to him, like, what's this kid to you? And Picard's like, he's my son. So he's like made that much. So if he's not, he's going to look like a right twonk, isn't he? But if he is, fair enough. And I guess next episode we'll get an explanation from Beverly, maybe. Don't know. So yeah, as you can tell, I really enjoyed this episode. I said it's about like member berries. There's little things like Shaw makes an announcement to the crew, and there's that sort of whistle, that that they do that from the original series when Kirk would make an announcement to the crew. That just that little noise, just go, oh, this is Star Trek, Great pace. So it's really refreshing to watch it, and something happens in the episode. It moves the story forward, and it's not complete nonsense. So you're just sitting there going, what? Okay. Episode 2, and it's already gone off a cliff. This actually follows on. It's still making sense. We've got Worf. I am gutted I cannot binge this puppy. Don't get me wrong, weekly's great, and I'm really looking forward to next week's episode. I'm trying to rein myself back. I keep hearing this thing's great right way through to the end, but even though the people who are saying that are opinions I respect, I don't always agree with them on everything. There's not, there's quite a few things they like that I think are like, I don't agree with you there. But I'm just trying to stay optimistic. I mean, this has given me a lot more optimism. 2 episodes in, 2 good episodes, 2 really, like, again, that just that one interaction with Picard and Riker. Seeing that relationship is exactly how Riker would talk to Picard, and like, get your head out your ass, dude. Where's Admiral Kirk? Admiral Picard, come on. So yeah, it's like sort of teasing it out, and it's just kicking in. I'm buzzing. I'm absolutely buzzing. Again, the whole Worf and Raffi, how's that going to pan out? That could be quite cool. And again, we saw more character development from her when she set up the meeting. I think it was with her ex-husband who has a bar. And there's a whole interaction about how she'd snuck to an event to see her son, and obviously he still doesn't want anything to do with her, and he gives it like, I can set up a meeting, or I can put in a good word with your son. She chose the meeting, but she's saying, I'm still saying clean, etc. So, you know, there's a little bit more meat on the bones to Raffi, rather than just being this futuristic junkie lesbian or bi, because everybody's like bi in the future, aren't they? So whatever. Yeah, so even that, you know, she's getting better material, a little bit more depth to her character, but I'm still, you know, I don't have a great affection for her. If she got killed in the next episode, I wouldn't be bothered. But you know, it's good to see that everybody's characters are developing, and thought has clearly gone into all of the story and how all their storylines are going to move forward. And I think her interaction with Worf could be quite interesting, because she's quite feisty, not necessarily written in a particularly great way, but yeah, I could see them having a few set twos, shall we say. So yeah, I mean, that's it. That was episode 2. I'm very excited for episode 3. So if you weren't sure whether to go watch this yet, because we have seen time and time again, episode 1 could go somewhere, episode 2 off a cliff. This has not gone off a cliff. This is a great episode. Firing, action, Worf chopping off people's heads. Come on, what more do you want? So do go give it a go. Watch episodes 1 and 2 if you haven't yet. Or if you want to wait, you don't want to get your fingers burnt, and you just want to binge it all at the end based on what everybody's saying, fair play. I completely understand. But I am really enjoying this so far. Let's hope for episode 3 is as exciting. So yeah, I will be back next Friday with the episode 3 review. Again, I will try and do it straight after watching it so you can gauge my reactions. And I'll be back on Sunday with Sunday lunch. Hopefully, I will see you soon. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.